Hello everybody, it's Nick here with Nick Tolman Music, and today we're going to go ahead and continue our beginner guitar lesson series using the Hal Leonard guitar method, book 1. Let's get started. Alright, so today we're going to go ahead and look at page 33 here in the Hal Leonard guitar method, book 1. Before we get started, I will just toss out my quick reminder to go on over and check out my Patreon page and consider becoming a patron today. As a patron of Nick Tolman Music, you have some access to some really great resources, including a weekly video series where I discuss questions and concerns that are brought up by you, my patrons. So if you have questions, if you're looking for a little bit more of that teacher-student relationship where you can kind of get answers to the questions that you have or the issues that you're facing on guitar, this is a great opportunity for you, as you can submit those questions and I answer those in a weekly video series on Patreon. So definitely check that out, and again, consider becoming a patron today. Alright, so on page 33, we are going to learn a few new strumming patterns. Now, this is really the first time in the book that it gives us any kind of ideas as far as strumming patterns are concerned. We've learned eighth notes, and so that is kind of part of why it takes so long to get to this point in the book. But we've actually already talked about some options prior to this that I've kind of just tossed out in the lessons. But we're going to hit some of these today. So the idea is that when you are strumming chords as an accompaniment part, or as maybe like a backup or rhythm guitar type situation, you don't always want to just be playing quarter notes, right? Because it's just going to get boring. So this page gives us a few options as far as things that we might do for a strumming pattern. Now, obviously, these are not the only options. There are unlimited rhythmic options that you could do while strumming chords. But this is a good place to start as far as kind of trying out some new things and getting us going in that direction. All right, so let's go ahead and start by taking a look at exercise 73. We're going to start with the metronome at 72. You'll notice that it's all eighth notes. Okay, so if we have that metronome going, we're going to be thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's guiding our eighth note pulse. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play it. I'll talk about a few things that you can do with this exercise to maybe make it a little bit more interesting, and we'll go from there. So here it is, exercise 73, basic down-up strum at 72. 1 and 2 and ready and play. And that's the idea. All right, so now right out of the gate, you'll probably realize that that's not super interesting. It is important to practice, right? Because if you've only been doing like down strokes with your strumming up to this point, getting those up strokes in might be a little bit awkward. So there's a few things that you're focusing on. One is that you're getting a consistent sound both on the down and the up. Now, granted, a down stroke and an up stroke are always going to sound a little bit different, but you can seek for consistent volume in your strumming, consistent overall tone, right? Instead of something where you like have really heavy downstrokes and light upstrokes, like we don't want that, or the opposite, which would be like, I mean, if you're playing like ska, you maybe want that, but that's not what we're going for. We want a nice consistent sound. All right, so that's the first thing to work on. Right, and then obviously we're going to slowly build that tempo so we can do that faster and faster. Then the next thing to do on this exercise to make it more interesting is to experiment with where you place emphasis, right? So the first thing to try would maybe to do something where you place emphasis always on beats 2 and 4. So instead of just straight down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, right? We maybe place a little bit of emphasis on the 2nd and 4th beat. Something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Right? What that's going to do is kind of create a little bit more drive, a little bit more energy there. And you can experiment with other emphasis too, right? Instead of just 2 and 4, maybe you place your emphasis on like beat 1 of each measure. Right? It's a different kind of feel. There's no right or wrong answer in that. It would all totally depend on the music that you're trying to create or the music that you're trying to play. But this is a good exercise for maybe experimenting with some of those options. Now you'll notice in the last exercise there, I actually switched to where I was just doing 1 measure of C and 1 measure of G. This is also something that you can do. So with this exercise, instead of just going all the way through 2 measures of C, 2 measures of G, repeating, do it again, maybe shorten it down and get used to switching faster. So 1 measure of C. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Or maybe even shorter, so you're only doing 2 beats of C and 2 beats of G. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Just really getting used to kind of doing this whole thing in a variety of situations. The last thing that you can do with any of these exercises on this page is to maybe experiment with some different chords. What other chords do you know that you can throw in here to make more interesting? Maybe we try throwing in the D chord as well, or the D7. G, D7, back to G. Right? Or if you know any other chords, maybe an A minor or an E minor, or whatever chords you want to experiment with, whatever chords you know, this is a great time to just start playing around with moving between different chords. All right? Okay, so let's take the metronome up for 73 and see how it sounds. So this is 120 on the metronome, exercise 73. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and ready and... And that's the idea. Again, slowly build. You can go faster and faster. 120 is absolutely not the max, but starting at that slow tempo and just building the metronome click by click until you get at a nice fast tempo and you're able to play consistently at a variety of tempos, right? Okay, so let's take a look at number 74. This is Strum Variations. So this is just variations of the basic down-up strumming, all right? So if we look at 74, you'll notice the only thing that you're going to notice is that we have a quarter, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, quarter, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. And we have a word in there that says miss, okay? And what they mean by that is essentially what we're going to be doing is down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, right? So the miss is when you go down, you have to come back up to do another downstroke, right? But you're not strumming on that up. You're missing the strings and then strumming again. So down, miss, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down, up. That way we get that quarter, eighth, 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 quarter, eighth, 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 eighth pattern. All right, let's go and try it. Here's 72 on the metronome. 1 and 2 and ready and play. And it's super important when you're working on these exercises. Whenever you're working on strumming chords, you have to realize that the role that you're taking as a guitar player is a rhythm role, right? So when you're strumming, it's so important to make sure that you are really focusing on the metronome and locking in as tight as you possibly can on that metronome. It's only going to make you a better musician and easier to play with when other people are playing with you, which is likely going to be the case if you're strumming chords, right? So make sure that you're locking right in on the metronome. All right, so all of the same concepts apply as what we talked about in the last one as far as being able to kind of use this exercise and vary it and experiment with different chords, placing emphasis in different places, working up the tempo, all of those things, all right? So let's go ahead and try it at a faster tempo. Here is 120 on the metronome, exercise 74. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and. Okay, let's go ahead and try exercise 75. All right, so this one is basically the pattern that I have been using throughout the book. It's very common, especially in a lot of these folk songs that they put in beginner guitar methods, but it works really well. It's just quarter, eighth, eighth, quarter, eighth, eighth, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Now it does incorporate this concept of the miss, right? Down, miss, down, up, down, miss, down, up, which I think, honestly, for me, when you overthink that, it can kind of be a problem. You don't really have to stress too much about the miss. You're just focusing on down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, right? If it helps you to think about that miss, by all means do it. But for me, I just like to think down, down, up, down, down, up. Quarter, eighth, eighth, quarter, eighth, eighth. Let's give it a shot. Here's exercise 75 at 72 on the metronome. 1, 2, and ready and play. All right, so on this one, again, placing emphasis on beats 2 and 4 is going to make it more interesting. So that's something that you can play around with. Also, this is a great one to practice instead of, on the quarter note, instead of strumming all of the notes, to maybe just pick the bass note. Do something like this. And only strum all the strings on the eighth notes. That gives it a little bit more of kind of a country, twangy type sound that you might experience in like folk music, you know, country, bluegrass, stuff like that, especially at a faster tempo. Right, that kind of feel. All right, let's take the tempo up a little bit. Here is 120 on the metronome, exercise 75. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, and ready, and. it is. So these are just a few great little exercises for you as you are practicing different kinds of strumming patterns. Hopefully you found this lesson helpful. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or otherwise, please leave them in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer those for you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and stay tuned for our next lesson. Thanks.